Do you know what a circle is? Of course you do. But the question for these artists was, is there a circle only when we draw a circle, or are shapes actually everywhere? I'm your teacher, Eli Kaplan-Wildman. Today we're going to learn about a style of art called Cubism. It was started by two artists, Pablo Picasso and Georges Braque. We heard about both of them in our previous class. We're also going to look at other artists who painted like them, but maybe who did it even better. Before we start, make sure you have a piece of paper with you and a pencil. Fold it in half, like this, so that you have two different sides, and leave it folded. Do you remember thinking about why Picasso stopped painting in a way that looked real in our last class? We'll never know why he switched, but we do know what he switched to. Many other artists switched to this style as well. Let's start with what many consider to be the first Cubist painting. We definitely see 5 people here, and they are probably women, but they don't look like a photograph of 5 women, or even like a drawing. Picasso decided to paint these women using some brand new ideas about art. Or were they actually new ideas? Look at their faces. Although Picasso was white and saw mostly white people around him in Paris, he got inspired by African objects, masks and statues that were available because of European people going to Africa and taking objects, bringing them back to Europe. We know now that this wasn't right. Back then, though, Picasso simply saw these statues as beautiful. He was inspired by the simplicity and by the way these creations were able to use very few lines and shapes to express something that he and his friends did with so much effort. Was he copying them, stealing their ideas and their style, or was he being inspired by them to create something new? It's hard to tell exactly because 100 years ago when Picasso made this painting, people thought differently about borrowing ideas. Artists are always inspired by what they see around them. It helps them create new things and then inspire other people to make even more new things, as we're about to see. If you grown-ups are interested, there's more information on Picasso's cultural appropriation versus inspiration in the supplementary lesson. In Cubism, we use basic shapes to draw an image. The name comes from a critic, someone back then who was trying to say how terrible these paintings were. He said, "All he sees is little cubes." The name stuck, even though actually Cubism uses all sorts of shapes, not just cubes. Circles, rectangles, and most of all, many, many triangles. Basic shapes are all around us. A table could just be a rectangle. This chair could just be an oval, or a series of circles. Do you still have your paper with you? Before we look at other Cubist creations, I want you to create one of your own. Look at this picture. When the music comes on, pause the video and draw a version of this image with only basic shapes. Circles, squares, triangles, diamonds. Remember, you can use any size or direction with your shapes, but the idea is to simplify. From this picture of real life, create a series of outlines. Don't spend time coloring anything in, just your pencil and the paper. You can do it pretty quickly. Ready? How did it come out? You made a more simple version of the original image. If you were trying to copy it exactly, it would have taken a long time. But this way, you were able to do it pretty quickly. Here are a bunch of houses drawn in this style, in another early Cubist painting. And what do you think of this painting? Picasso painted a factory. Do you see that even in the sky, which would normally be flat, there are square shapes? Can you point to them? It seems easy using basic shapes to simplify images, but Cubism didn't stop there. As the style developed, they began to use shapes to make images more complicated. This version of Cubism is called Fractal Cubism. To fracture something means to break it up into lots of little pieces. Let's look at a picture to see how they did it. A portrait means a painting or photograph of a single person's face. In this portrait, Picasso painted the man who helped sell his and many other artists' paintings. Do you think Picasso liked this man? What can you tell from this image? This man was someone who, on the one hand, helped a lot of artists by finding people to buy their paintings, but on the other hand, some artists thought he wasn't very fair to them. He was also a visionary, someone who showed the world this new type of art. Using the Cubist fractal technique, Picasso doesn't simplify. Instead, he captures the many sides of this man and shows how complicated he is. We see the same thing in a painting by a different artist, Jean Metzinger. The painting is called Woman with Fan. Can you find the fan? Pretty easy to spot. Where's the woman? We see her hands. Where is her dress? And her face is all broken up, like we're seeing different versions of her at once. This is a great example of seeing basic shapes. Where are the circles? And the rectangles? Point to some rectangles. And then the triangles. I think triangles can be found in every Cubist painting because they are created whenever you jumble different shapes together. With so many overlapping shapes, we end up seeing a lot of triangles of every angle, size, and color. Take your piece of paper and turn it around to the other side. I'm going to put up the same image as before. This time, I want you to use basic shapes not to simplify, but to make it more complicated. When you draw the tree, draw it broken up into pieces, like slices of pizza stacked on top of each other, or with lots of squares, like a checkerboard. Again, don't color anything in, and it doesn't need to take a lot of time. Make a version of this picture with broken up shapes. Before we finish, I have to show you two more artists who use Cubism to make beautiful paintings. Fernand Léger didn't use cubes. He used these long cylinders, making most of his shapes out of what looked like pipes. People nicknamed his style, instead of Cubism, Tubism. And finally, my personal favorite. The best example of Cubism being able to present something complex, to show different things all at once. Marcel Duchamp made paintings of someone going down a staircase. Can you see the person going down? What exactly is Duchamp showing here? We see the person going down the staircase, but it's almost like a movie where we see them going through all the different steps. We see their body in motion, in multiple positions at the same time. Let's pick up the paper that you drew on, unfold it, and look at the two halves. These are the two extremes of Cubism, using shapes to make things more simple, and using shapes to make things more complicated. For your project that you do after this class, you can choose which one to do, or you can mix between the two. And just like the person going down the staircase, you can show movement in your picture as well, or you can show many sides of something like Picasso did with his portrait. Whatever you decide to put into your picture or make it be a picture of, you're going to use triangles. That's the only rule. Big triangles, little triangles, skinny triangles. Remember, as we saw, triangles can make all the other shapes. So 2 triangles becomes a square, or a circle could actually be made of lots of little triangles, like the slices in a pie. I'm sure whatever you make, it'll be way more interesting than a regular picture. Have fun.